Hello, fellow fantasy sports. That was not the start I wanted. Hello, fantasy sports fans. See, I can't say it right. Hello, fantasy sports fans. I finally got it. I'm here with Casey Vlad to the Bone Scheinvold and Ross the Balls.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk waiver wire week 5. No, week 4. With you, cowboy.
This is like the Three Stooges so far.
We are on
fire. I it was week 4. I was just having
Meanwhile, are you wearing a shirt that says pineapple? It looks like
it says Bad Apples. It's an homage to one of my softball teams.
I see. Well, I am wearing an old Houston Oilers shirt because I believe that no franchise should be left behind. I will remember you, Oilers.
Earl Campbell, Billy White Shoes Johnson,
Warren Moon.
Warren Moon. Yes. Eddie George.
Oh my God, there was some great players there. Okay, guys, we're gonna get right into it. We're talking Yahoo 60% and under in rostership. We're gonna get right into QBs. Now, I'm not gonna steal anyone's thunder. Casey, we're gonna start off with you. You tell us who's your number one guy.
My number one guy right now, I think it has to be Sam Darnold. As much as he was, he's only 22% owned. He was kind of wasted on the Jets, it seems like, and we started to question whether he was worth the high pick the Jets gave up to get him. And he goes to Carolina, has a couple targets to throw to, and he's putting up almost 30 points a week. This past week, 300 yards, two rushing touchdowns he actually had in the game with no passing touchdowns. So he's even getting it done with his legs. I'm not a huge Darnold fan, but if you need a quarterback in a pinch, he's not a bad one.
Ross, do you concur? I have somebody.
I don't concur. My number one quarterback for waiver wire this week is Derek Carr.
I agree.
First place, Las Vegas Raiders. Derek Carr over 350 yards last week, 2 touchdowns. I mean, this guy's looking unbelievable. I mean, if we redrafted this week, he would be for sure like a top 5 pick. I mean, he is not going to. And the Raiders, like their schedule is a complete joke. So he'll just get better and better.
Maybe
as the week goes on.
Did you mean round 5
It'll be I meant it'll be in the top 5 quarterback.
He meant top 5 quarterbacks, which is still crazy.
It's still crazy. And I love Derek Carr right now. I would never think I would ever say that right now, this part of the season. But this guy is a pickup, and there's a lot of top tier quarterbacks I would bench and start Derek Carr with.
Listen, Derek Carr is the new Matthew Stafford. He is a guy who's going to throw the ball a lot this year. I'm not saying anything beyond that. I think Derek Carr is a top 12 QB. I wouldn't pick him in the top 5 still, but I think he's the number one pickup.
Okay, who rather you start, Lamar Jackson or Derek Carr?
Any given week, I would go with Lamar Jackson.
Okay, fine. I disagree, but keep going.
Okay, and Sam Darnold is my number 2 pickup in QBs. Okay. And listen, I thought he was going to be really good. I thought he was going to be much better on Carolina. Listen, I remember one time I was at a Billy Joel concert, and he was talking about how the Browns had just lost, and he was like, "Listen, you could be a Jets fan." It's
so the
really
thing
true.
About Sam Darnold is this: he's actually around talented receivers this year, and has an offensive line, and that team is 3-0, and they're in first place. But listen, it shows you if you're around talent like Ross the Boss is, you shine.
Yeah, but also if you're on a franchise that shows you over and over and over the quarterback failing, it's hard to break through. Look at what happened to Justin Fields. I mean, some of that was game script and the coach not adjusting for the way that he plays. But still, it's hard to come in and be a Bears quarterback. They have not had a good quarterback for 60 years, a franchise quarterback. They've had good quarterbacks.
Jim McMahon was good. He had 68 yards and he had like 12 yards rushing. It was a horrible day for him.
I think Jim McMahon could have gotten that this week.
Yeah, listen.
I think Casey Scheinfeld could have got that this week.
Listen, it was the most relaxing Browns game I've ever seen. I did not sweat at all. I do think, though, Matt Ryan is still – he's under-owned. This guy's going to be throwing the ball a lot. He's got, great pedigree from the past. Is he the Matt Ryan of old? Clearly not. I would rather have Derek Carr than Matt Ryan. I'd rather have Sam Darnold than Matt Ryan. But next up, the question is it Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, Matt Ryan? Casey, what do you say about those 3?
I actually say it's Taylor Heineke. I'm going to go a different route entirely. I think he took the Redskins job because Fitzmagic got hurt, and he's scoring touchdowns through the air and with his legs. He's showing athleticism. He's kind of a fighter out there. What did he do? 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, 21 yards and a touchdown on the ground. in standard scoring leagues, he's putting up a good amount of points, and he's got a good team around him, a good offensive line, a good running back. Scary Terry McLaurin is a really good wide receiver. Logan Thomas is a good tight end. I actually like him better and as a Giants fan, like him better than Daniel Jones. And I like Calvin Ridley. I like Kyle Pitts, but I don't like the rest of the Falcons offense for Matt Ryan.
I think the only question is, how long is Taylor Heineke going to be the starting guy?
He's going to be 8 weeks. What did they say? 6 to 8 weeks that Matt Ryan
6 to 8 weeks.
Fitzpatrick's going to miss
6 to 8 weeks. Washington looked horrible last week. I mean, Heineke, hopefully you don't need to start him. I mean, I'm praying your team has somebody else on the bench that can play instead of Heineke.
That's right. We're not only here to make recommendations, we're also praying for you.
Yes.
That's right.
We're going to move on to running backs.
Well, there's one more I want you to pick up and stash. Pick up and stash is Trey Lance. He's available in like 70% of the leagues. He's somebody that they're so frustrated they lost yesterday to Green Bay that I think there's going to be a change kind of quick. And Trey Lance,
Garoppolo did not look good in that game.
Trey Lance, he overthrew a lot of people. Trey Lance, I believe, will start by week 5. We'll see if I'm right.
Okay, that was my initial call, week 5. So I'm in agreement with you, and I also talked about him last week. So I don't know why I moved on without. I totally agree. Trey Lance is a priority pickup. He's a guy who could make a difference. The only guys I see out there that can make a difference, Derek Carr maybe, and Trey Lance. So I would get those two. Okay, running backs. Alexander Madison was a priority pickup last week as a possible fill-in for Dalvin Cook. He did fill in for him. He filled in for him well, but he's over 60%.
68.
Tony Pollard is now over 70%. He's way up there. So we're not talking about him as a pickup either, although if they're available, I'd grab him. Top pickup at running back is a guy I've been talking about. In my mind, he's the top pickup. It's Chuba Hubbard. I told people to pick up this guy. Christian McCaffrey is always going to be hurt for at least 4 games every season. I'm not ripping on the guy. He just, running back is a very tough position, and he's gone down before. So he's my top pickup. Casey, do you agree with that? Or how about you, Ross? Either one.
I agree 100%. That's the top pickup of the week. I mean, McCaffrey's out for at least 4 weeks. He's not on IR, but he's not going to miss 8 weeks, but between 4 and 5 weeks. Another person you should pick up on Carolina is Royce Freeman. He's the 3rd string running back. He used to play for your Denver Broncos, and he actually could see some handoffs if Hubbard actually goes south. You'll see Freeman in there. So I think Freeman's a good pickup also.
Not a bad speculative ad. Casey, how about you? Who's at the top of your running back list?
Well, Chuba Hubbard's the top of my list. And then number 2 is Zach Moss. 2 weeks in a row, he's found the end zone. You could say it was garbage time 2 weeks ago, but when he scored, but the guy, they're giving him the red zone carries, and he even, I think, had 3 targets this week. So even in a PPR league, he can chip in a few points there. I just think when they drafted him 2 years ago, he was supposed to take over for that team and run away with the job. He might have just been a little bit, it might have taken him a year to develop, and he seems to be on the upslope. He's somebody who you can grab, who's young, and if and when he grabs the job, I don't think he gives it up.
Okay, Ross, I don't know if you're going to get mad about this, but you remember I said Zach Moss last week. You said no way, stay away from him.
I just don't like any Buffalo running back. I don't like any Baltimore
prejudiced.
Running back. I just don't like any of these guys. I mean, I'm going to say somebody right now who I do like, who I think is a good pickup right now for your Las Vegas Raiders, is Peyton Barber.
Peyton, yeah.
And it's not Tiki Barber, who we know played for the Giants. They're not related. But
or Rondé Barber.
It's his twin brother. But this guy had 23 carries, 111 yards, had a touchdown. He looked unbelievable. I think he can win that job, and I think you should pick him up now because he could be the starting running back for your Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was shocked when Kenyon Drake got out-touched so quickly because he's the highest paid backup in the league, so you assumed he would get the job when Jacobs went down. I don't think he can take the starting job from Josh Jacobs. I think once Josh Jacobs is healthy, he'll get that job back. At this point, we'd be speculating when it will happen.
This is one thing you just have to keep in mind about the NFL. You never know what's happening in those locker rooms.
No.
It could be that Drake is in the doghouse, and they were just like, okay, now I'm going to run Peyton Barber out there the whole time. Maybe Drake's back next week. Here's the thing, though.
I hate the Drake. Do you guys ever see Seinfeld?
Oh,
I hate the Drake.
The Drake. Okay, now listen. A guy like Peyton Barber, this is the kind of guy that people will rip on you just for picking him up. Why? He's getting the opportunity.
111 yards and 23 carries. And nothing else can be said. I mean, this guy.
That speaks for itself.
It speaks for itself. And I disagree. I think Chucky will make. He wants to win. So whoever's the hot back, he'll start. We'll see what happens.
Right. See, that's the thing. You gotta know your coach to know what's happening there. Yeah. I still have Barber lower than a couple of other guys that I think have more upside.
I want to hear this.
So one of the guys that I still think has much bigger upside. I know you're not a big fan of the San Francisco backfield, and I understand why. There's too many backs there. But if there's one guy that can emerge all the time, it's Trey Sermon. I think you want to give him at least one
touchdown yesterday.
He's under 60%.
He is under 60%.
Wow.
So.
Casey Scheinfeld might make a move. You never know. He may.
No, he's owned in our league.
But again, I hate the 49ers just because their media department does not give us any information at all. Every week, they're so quiet on injuries, so quiet on who's playing. I'm sick of it. You're sick of it. Let's disband all the 49ers in fantasy football starting today.
All right, listen, I have to make a correction. I always call if I make a mistake. Trey Sermon is actually over 60% off.
That's what I
What? You're never wrong, Dr.
However,
Ratner.
Thank you.
You know what? Anyways, I might like Kenneth Gainwell more anyway.
Yeah, I was going to mention Kenneth Gainwell too.
He's a similar type of back, but he has a more carved out role. He's still on a very good team because the Eagles are definitely on the upswing. Kudos to you, Ross, for calling it. I think Gainwell could really listen. If what's his name?
Miles Sanders.
Miles Sanders.
If Sanders goes down, Gainwell becomes a major priority at it.
Yeah.
I think you want to pounce on that.
He didn't have that many handoffs last week. I watched him. I studied him. I watched film on him. It just doesn't get the opportunity like other backs do, like Pollards and people like that. But again, if Sanders goes down, which he did last year, it's a great pickup.
Well, let me also say this, though. I mean, his opportunities could increase as the year goes. You got to remember he's a rookie.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, I also like Michael Carter in on the Jets. He's again, that's a horrible team. So I'm not saying add him and plug him into your lineup. That's more of an add and hope he sort of works into owning the job, becoming the number one or being more productive. But he's got the talent for it. He was a stud at North Carolina. He certainly doesn't have a lot of competition around him in that backfield in New York. So he's somebody who I would speculatively add and put at the bottom of my bench, hoping he gains value as the season progresses.
I agree. I this may not be a popular viewpoint, but I would rather own Michael Carter than Peyton Barber. Peyton Barber could flame out very quickly.
I rather own Jimmy Carter than Michael Carter. I mean, the Jets are so bad that you should not have anybody on your team from the Jets. Nobody. The kicker, the quarterback, and nobody. Don't have anybody on your team from the Jets. Trust me, it's a waste of time. You're not going to start.
I don't entirely disagree.
You're not going to play one Jet. If you do, I want you to email me and tell me how bad you lost your game that week, please.
That sounds good.
It's time to at Ross.
There's a couple of other types of backs that I want to add, though.
Okay.
In PPR leagues, you got to look at this a little bit differently. A guy like Giovanni Bernard is extremely valuable in PPR. He had 9 receptions.
I loved it. Ex-Bengal. I was sad when he left the Bengals, 2-1 Bengals. I got to remind everybody. But yeah, you're 100% right. He plays in a great offense with this guy named Tom Brady. Did I say it right, Dan? Tom Brady.
Yes,
yeah, I think that's
well done.
And he scored a touchdown yesterday. It was a kind of a trash thing, but didn't matter. But Bernard in the fourth quarter, he's their starter. He plays the whole fourth quarter. He's great.
I mean, the other thing is their other running backs, Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, are playing horribly.
You cut them. Look, I'm doing the scissors.
I already cut Ronald Jones, and I'm ready to cut Fournette.
Okay, good.
If you want to own a back in Tampa Bay, it seriously is Bernard. I don't think that's a great own, but
Casey and I agree with you 100%.
I'm not denying that one.
Then there are the running backs that are kind of the Alexander Madisons of this week. Who are some guys that you can add?
Who are these people?
Okay, so who are the people that you could add that are just guys that could instantly become valuable? I'll throw out one, and then you guys.
I got one for you.
Well, I don't want to steal your thunder. You go first.
Me?
Yeah, you.
I New Orleans, Tony Jones. That's
why I didn't take it. He was your guy.
I love Tony Jones. I loved him when they drafted him. This rookie is the real deal. Kamara, I hope he doesn't go down, but if he does, Kamara, I hope he's. I don't wish any ill on anybody. But Tony Jones is a really, really good, and I hope he gets an opportunity very soon, at least to show some of his work during a game, because this guy can run.
I think he's your number one, like Alexander Madison, Chuba Hubbard kind of guy at this point, because the others are owned. So grab Tony Jones, definitely. Casey, who do you have on that list?
I was going to name Tony Jones, sorry. But I'm going to go back to somebody I named last week, and that's J.D. McKissick. Gibson, Antonio Gibson in Washington with the football team has not been great this year. He was hurt for a bit last year. We don't know a tremendous amount but McKissick is a touchdown vulture. And if something happens to Gibson, is somebody who can be, it looks like a 3-down back because he catches the ball for them too. So that would be another name I would put on that list.
And Coach Rivera loves McKissick, and you're 100% right there. I mean, it's not a bad person to start during a bye week or something if one of your backs aren't playing. I agree. That's a great pickup. And Coach Rivera loves playing him and getting him the ball.
All right, let's move on to wide receivers. I consider this to be the part of the waiver wire where I might become physically ill because there's just not that many great pickups.
I bear to differ, but keep going.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, listen, I think, look, there's always quarterbacks to pick up, but it's the running back that's where the meat of things that are getting picked up. Some weeks there are some great wide receivers. I'm not feeling this week that much. It's okay. I've had worse, but Casey, who do you start with?
I start with, in Buffalo, Emmanuel Sanders. He seems to be a trusted target. The defenses are keying on Stephon Diggs, which means somebody else has to step up. This past week, he had 94 yards on 5 receptions, 2 of which were touchdowns.
I thought he said 94 receptions.
94 yards on 5 receptions for 2 touchdowns. He's going to be a viable number 2 receiver in an offense that is capable of putting up a lot of points. They're developing a running game, as we talked about with Zach Moss. You got Singletary back there as well. If they can spread out the field, they can get some really favorable matchups, and that's an offense that can support more than one fantasy weapon. And I think true. Emmanuel Sanders could be that guy.
I'm just going to counter. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I just want to say Josh Allen accounted for 5 touchdowns. I don't think that's always going to happen. So something to think about. There's just a lot of spread there. I don't have him high on my list for that reason. There's just too many other people. Like Jacoby Myers, for example, I'm not in love with him, but he has more of a target share, generally speaking. So I'd rather go for him.
He had 14 targets yesterday. 14, Jacoby Myers, and 94 yards. That's not too bad. I think he's Jones's favorite target right now.
So, Ross, would he be your number 1 wide receiver pickup?
I don't really have a number 1. I have like 5 guys that are all like fighting for position.
Well, let's hear it.
So I like Tim Patrick. He had 5 receptions, 90-something yards. I mean, Denver, Bridgewater is 3-0. He's throwing the ball. He likes Tim Patrick. He'll be starting there for a few more weeks, so pick him up. Hunter Renfro for Vegas.
Yes.
I mean, this guy, 77 yards, 1 touchdown. Derek Carr has to throw the ball to somebody. It's him or Ruggs. So Renfro, great pickup if you can get him. Christian Kirk, I mentioned him before. I mean, this guy, 104 yards, 7 receptions yesterday. And Murray loves Christian Kirk. They're good friends. They were roommates at one time. Great pickup. AJ Green, the same team. He had 112 yards yesterday. Another good pickup. I mean, Hopkins, the thing about Hopkins was this yesterday, and you should know this as a fantasy player, he did not practice all week. And when a player is in practice all week, it means that they're a decoy. Do you know what a decoy is, Casey Scheinfeld? I know what you know what a decoy is. So basically, they were not going to throw the ball to Hopkins at all. If I had him on any of my teams, I would not start him. So basically, Green, all these other guys were going to get the ball. And basically, Hopkins was not going to do well, which he didn't at all yesterday. And I knew it. And again, you mentioned him, Jacoby Myers, great pickup right now. I feel the New England is going to start passing the ball more and more when they trust Mac Jones more and more. So you'll see a lot of passing, especially this Monday night, Tampa Bay versus New England. Brady coming back home. Who's excited about it? Raise your hand. No one raised.
I am, but I think I disagree with your AJ Green. I think he's he's a run-through receiver who will get hurt here in the next couple of weeks and be irrelevant a couple of weeks after that. I think.
How dare you? He's an ex-Bengal at the University of Georgia. How dare you?
I'm not denying he was a stud 10 years ago. I'm denying. What I'm saying is we're looking at the waiver wire now. I think Hunter Renfro of that group is the strongest one you named. I think he's kind of that Wes Welker type, that Julian Edelman type, and who just is always finding ways to get open and has reliable hands. And I think if we believe in Derek Carr, which it sounds like we all do, he's going to need that reliable set of hands to get possessions, even if he's not going to be a touchdown machine. He found the end zone this week, but it's not something he's known for. But if he can get you 7-8 receptions and 70 or 80 yards every week, that's 14, 15 points. And that's a pretty good wide receiver 2 or 3 on almost any fantasy team if it's a 12 or 14 team league. The other guy, if you want to go really deep, we talked about Jacoby Myers on the New England Patriots. What about Kendrick Bourne? This past week, 6 receptions, 96 yards, a touchdown. Mac Jones is looking for reliable receivers he can trust. I'm not saying it's a guy I trust yet that I would add and plug into my lineup. But if we're looking for wide receivers, because, well, let's be honest, Mac Jones needs some wide receivers, that would be somebody I would want to be keeping an eye on over the next week or two.
Is he any relation to Jason Bourne, or they're not related?
This is a Bourne Identity movie.
Well,
I think so too.
I asked him that question and he told me he couldn't answer that.
There you go.
This is one of the strangest conversations that never actually happened. But I will say this. Listen, somebody's going to take those targets that were Nelson Aguilar's for the Las Vegas Raiders. I agree. I think Hunter Renfro is a great pickup. I also think Henry Ruggs is a great pickup. Those two guys are going to be very useful wide receivers. I will say this is just a very small aside, but Hunter Renfro is also a baseball player for the Red Sox.
A very good
right
fielder. If he had hit
a 2-run homer last week, I would be in the finals of our baseball league. But he didn't, so I won't pick up Hunter Renfro in either league. That's my rant. Ross, you had a rant before. Do you want to go to your rant?
Keep going. I'm good.
You just loved mine so much. You were like,
how do you top that one?
That was great.
Did you say Hunter Dozier?
No, I would never pick him up.
That was a horrible pickup.
A couple other guys to mention, though, wide receivers. KJ Osborne, I know he had a dud of a week last week. I know he's third in their pecking order, but he's been putting up some good numbers. I think he's worth the speculative ad at the back end. Guys like Zach Pascal are like that too. Did you guys see Josh Gordon sign?
Kansas City Chiefs.
Josh Gordon signed with the Chiefs. Hopefully, he can keep his head on straight and not do stupid things. But that's I don't think I'm going to be in the Josh Gordon business at all. I don't think I'll put any waiver wires, anything on him. But I'm rooting for the kid. I don't want anybody to be ill. I don't want anybody to have to go back and be suspended again for stupid things. But I'm kind of rooting for him. I want him to do well, even though I don't like Kansas City, who is 1-2, who is in last place in their division, who everybody picked to win the Super Bowl. And Ross the Boss said Kansas City's overrated. They'll be lucky to make the playoffs.
I didn't even have him in the Super Bowl.
I didn't even have him making the playoffs. I just feel that they're so like they think they already won the Super Bowl before the season starts, and there's such a target on their back. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. I say there's going to be turmoil in Kansas City by the end of the season, and we'll see a lot of stuff go on. You heard it from me first, Ross the Boss.
Listen, the Chiefs, given that they are 1-2 and basically should have lost to the Browns, they could be 0-3 right now. And they look like a team that has a lot of vulnerability. I'm going to mention one other guy at wide receiver / running back. Oh, Casey, okay. You got one? Go ahead.
I got one too. And this is a speculative ad simply because if anybody watched the Ravens game, props to Justin Tucker, 66-yard field goal. Epic. If I had to pick NFL somebody, if my life depended on it and somebody had to make a field goal, I'm picking Justin Tucker 7 days of the week. But it wouldn't have been an issue if Marquis Brown hadn't dropped 3 cookies that were right in his hands.
Let's go back to Marquis Brown.
Hold on. Wait, I'm not done, dude.
Okay, keep going. I love this rant. Keep going.
So I'm going to say they just brought Rashad Bateman off of the IR, and he's going to be practicing, and they hope he'll be back in 2 weeks. And this is a really good rookie wide receiver, and Lamar Jackson is going to be looking for people to throw it to because he's not going to trust Hollywood Brown by then. So I would consider him a speculative ad because I don't know how anybody trusts Marquise Brown right now.
Yeah, don't call him Hollywood. He lost the Hollywood title. I mean, after yesterday's game, he dropped 3 easy passes that Casey Scheinfeld could have caught easily. I mean, I think my dog could have caught those passes in her mouth, and with a football for a dog to catch is hard. But I mean, he dropped 3 easy passes. I felt horrible for Lamar, and even the announcers. I heard the announcers saying, I mean, these were easy passes, and I don't know how much you can trust Marquis Brown anymore. So there you go.
Listen, I'm just going to say this is one last little rant about Hollywood Brown. I think he should keep the name Hollywood. Hollywood's screwing people all the time. No. This is the perfect nickname.
You have to earn the nickname, and the Hollywood. I would say you could call him Culver City Brown now, or you could call him maybe, let's say,
Tarzana,
maybe Westwood Brown or Tarzana.
West Brown. LA Brown.
West LA Brown. The Hollywood thing is gone. I mean, a professional athlete dropping pass. My whole
you're
life.
Right. He does not deserve that.
He's somewhere near Sacramento.
Wide receiver in any level drop 3 passes so easy as Marquis Brown did yesterday. I mean, I'm talking about Pee Wee, talking about high school, college, semi-pro, Canadian, you name it. Never.
But because of that, I think Rashad Bateman is a value add right now.
I'm going to pick up Rashad Bateman as soon as I'm done with you, bozos. Don't worry.
I think that's a great observation, Casey. And I will just add, we mentioned Corduroy Patterson before. I think he's still a solid pickup. He's not the greatest, but especially in PPR leagues, you can plug that guy in and running back.
Can I go back to Atlanta Falcons real quick? So Calvin Ridley,
most people don't want to, but okay.
Huge disappointment, and Kyle Pitts. People pick Kyle Pitts in the 4th round. I mean, that's how soon people were taking Kyle Pitts. But I mean, why? These guys are both huge disappointments. So if you want to trade for one of these guys, right now is the time to do it. If you feel they'll bring it back maybe later in the season, because right now these guys are worthless. Trust me.
It's true. Although, do you ever have those times where you're like, "Ooh, this is a good guy to trade for," or maybe I should be trading him because he's terrible? They're kind of both.
Well, it's spinning the wheel,
yep.
And you could probably get. I mean, you'll probably do one of those Dan Ratner deals. Somebody you picked up on waivers and get Calvin Wrigley. We call that a Ratner in our business, where he picks up somebody in waiver wires and then trades them the next week for a top tier player. It's amazing how he does this. It's unbelievable.
It's not. Listen, I don't do that as often as you think, but what happens more often is I pick up somebody off the wire. They turn out to be great, and you continue to deny they're great. But moving to tight end, where you can't pick up anybody who's any good at all, almost ever.
Oh, it's the bare minimum at tight end.
All right, who do
wants
we
to
got?
Go first?
I'll go first. I'll give you 2 names.
Ahead, Casey Scheinfeld.
Just because somebody needs to. I'm going to go with Tyler Conklin in Minnesota, who had 70 yards and a touchdown this weekend, which is obviously very respectful for a tight end. Irv Smith, I believe, is hurt is he out the whole year?
He's out for the year.
He's out for a while.
Yeah, so there's a lot of targets for the tight end there. Let's be honest, Kirk Cousins is throwing a good football right now, and they have some wide receivers that spread the field, so the middle can be open for Conklin. He can do it, and I'm going to go with Dawson Knox in Buffalo. I know Dan isn't a fan of Buffalo special skill position players, as he talked about with Emmanuel Sanders. I think he likes Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen.
Oh no, but if you're talking about Dawson Knox, he's at the top. He's near the top of my list because tight end is so barren, and
he had a touchdown.
He had a touchdown. He's a red zone target who's big. Yeah. So I think those 2 are the top 2 tight ends this week.
I think those are good picks. Ross, what about you?
I can show you my card. I had the same exact thing Casey said. Knox had a 46 yards and a touchdown. And I also have somebody else. I have the everybody dropped this guy after week 1. I mean, he was like, you got to drop Mike Grzinski. Is that how you say his name?
Mike Gesicki.
Gesicki. Everybody has to drop Mike Gesicki. He had a horrible game, and he was the most dropped guy in the first week. I don't know if you guys remember this.
Yeah, I tried to drop him twice.
He had 13 targets. He had 13 targets yesterday.
He just kept grabbing onto me.
He had 13 targets and 86 yards yesterday. And again, I know it wasn't Tua's quarterback, but it doesn't matter. Tua's out for a while. I mean, he's not coming back next week. And this guy, Jacoby, who took his place, loves Gesicki. So I think Gesicki is a good pickup at tight end right now, as long as Tua's not playing.
It's a good call. I can see while he's playing with Jacoby Brissett, I think he could get a lot of targets because when a quarterback's relying on a guy like that, he's probably going to keep doing it. I did have Gesicki, and I cut him after a 0 point.
I'm not. I would have done the same thing, Dr. Dan Ratner.
He needed to go just on principle. But
Dan, how do you feel about your Cleveland Browns, Austin Hooper?
Well, Austin Hooper is over 60% owned, I believe.
No, he's 49% owned.
Oh, he is? Okay.
49% owned. Well, I like Hooper. I would prefer, to me, Dawson Knox is not very different than Hooper, except that Dawson Knox doesn't have such a target share, actually, at tight end. So, the Browns have 3 tight ends they throw to. So you're not going to get a lot of value from those.
Guys, in all seriousness, with the tight ends, it's a crapshoot unless you got Kelsey, unless you got Waller, and then maybe even Andrews and maybe Hawkinson. But after that, that's a huge drop.
But it's a good point. Even Hawkinson,
even TJ Hawkinson
dud last week.
Yeah, again, exactly. So,
you'll always find
Kyle Pitt's supposed to be his upcoming great star. He's not doing anything this year.
Hey, Dynasty League, he's worth the pick. But you're right. This year, he hasn't been proving it.
Yeah.
But you'll always find the likes of a Gerald Everett in Seattle or a Jared Cook in Los Angeles who will have a good game eventually and find the end zone occasionally. But tight end is just a really hard place to find consistent fantasy production.
It is. Higbee was good yesterday for the Rams. Again, but the week before he was horrible. So again, it's hard to find unless you got one of the top tier guys, then you're fine. But if not, you're scrambling around. Trust me.
Yeah. And at that point, I just want to attach my tight end to somebody who doesn't have a target share. Like I think Austin Hooper has too much of a target share, although they throw to him often enough. He's probably equal with these guys. I'd rather attach a guy to a good quarterback. So Dawson Knox is with Josh Allen. Tyler Conklin is with Kirk Cousins. Gerald Everett is with Russell Wilson. I'd rather take my chances on that. You could pick up Mike Gesicki, but he's going to be playing with a terrible quarterback, and he's not necessarily better than these guys. Guys, let's move on to defense. Who are your streamers to start? There's one out there that I kind of shocked that it's out there. Like, it's such a good pickup, I think. Defense is going to be a crapshoot anyway, but you give it a try. My top pickup is New Orleans. Sorry, Case. They're playing the Giants. They're playing at home. Daniel Jones is a bit of a turnover machine. And the Saints are just a really good team.
And Shepard and Slayton both left the game last week with hamstring issues.
Right.
So their wide receiving core is depleted.
Yep. So who do you guys have as your top defensive pickup? Mine is the Saints. There are matchups like anybody playing the Jets is exciting to pick up.
Ross, I'm going to say it, but I want you to talk about it. My top streaming defense is the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, I had them number 2. Cincinnati, they're at home against Jacksonville. Lawrence is going to throw interceptions.
He's thrown at least 2 every game.
2 every game. The Bengals defense came into the season like one of the worst defenses in the league, but they really stepped up. I don't know if anybody watched the Pittsburgh game. They looked unbelievable. I know they're playing Roethlisberger, but still they're Pittsburgh's a good, well-coached team, and I feel the Bengals against Jacksonville is a good start. And Casey, the other team I like is the Tennessee Titans are playing the Jets. Anytime you can play the Jets, even though Tennessee's defense is horrible. They give up a lot of yards, but it doesn't matter. They'll figure a way to get interceptions and score. I bet they have at least one scoring touchdown next week.
And you can also throw out there, if you had to, Chicago's defense. I know we talked about how horrible their offense looked, but they're going against Detroit, and the defense knows it has to do everything to keep Chicago in the game. So I think that could be another one where it's like a 14-10 final score or 10-6. It could just be a defensive.
Detroit was so close to being Baltimore guys yesterday. They basically
gave up a 4th and 19.
I saw that, but also
4th and 19. How do you do that? You just have to keep them to 18 yards and you win the game.
But did you guys see, though?
To Sammy Watkins.
There was a questionable call.
Yep.
Where it looked like time had elapsed and it should have been a clock violation.
5 yards.
And it should have been a 5-yard penalty, which would have made the kick a 71-yard field goal. And listen, as a Browns fan, I'm just like, of course it went Baltimore's way. No, always the Ravens.
4th and 19.
4th and 19.
Agree. And
I would have left Marquis Brown wide open and just covered everybody else.
Yeah, well, in fairness, you would have been safe because he would have just dropped it. Now, listen, even so, some props have to go to Justin Tucker.
Oh, my gosh.
66-yard field
Amazing.
goal. I remember growing up that the 63-yard field goal of Tom Dempsey was who had half a foot, by the way.
Yeah,
half a foot. And it was against Detroit. That kick was against Detroit also.
That's true. Detroit. And that's crazy. And meanwhile, Matt Prater.
I was going to bring up Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, and Matt Prater with 37 seconds to go was amazing.
I mean, Matt Prater, they lined him up for a 68-yard field goal. That would have been the record. And instead, it was kicked into the arms of the Jacksonville Jaguars player who returned it 109 yards for a touchdown.
And the coach for the Cardinals should have been fired for even attempting that field goal, but we'll talk about that some other time. I mean, that was one of the dumbest plays I've ever seen a coach do. And it backfired him. Luckily, they won the game, so it didn't really matter that much. But I would question what the coach was doing because it wasn't that smart. And he's lucky they're 3-0 because if they were 0-3, that coach
he'd be in
wouldn't
trouble.
have a job.
It's true.
That really coach would not be working right now. He'll be unemployed in the employment line as we're talking. But I mean, there are some surprising teams that are 3-0. There's 5 of them, and I mean, you got the Cardinals, you got the Raiders, you got the Broncos, you got the Panthers, and you got who's the other 5-0 team? I'm missing one. Yeah, I'm missing one, but
I'm not remembering who that would be.
Oh, the Rams. There you go.
Oh,
the Rams.
The Rams. My NFC.
By the way,
5.
I put Matt Stafford number 5 in my preseason quarterback ranks, and you both kind of gave me crap about it.
Of course we did. Stanford looks
that,
unbelievable,
but
the thing about the Rams is this: everybody's like saying Super Bowl, it's going to be in LA, the Rams are going to play in it. The Rams' running game is horrible. I mean, they rely so much on their passing game, and we all know you need a good running game so you can have a good passing game. And teams are really going to go after their quarterback now. And I just hope the Rams can have that running back start. He has to do something. The running game is a joke.
I mean, right now their running game is basically screen passes.
I guess.
Which is kind of what the Chiefs do. They don't run the ball much. All right, wait, we have to cover kickers before this show ends.
Go ahead.
So we've talked a lot about kickers and Justin Tucker and Matt Prater, but who are some guys that you would pick up? I can't believe who my number one pick is. It's shocking to me.
Let's hear it.
Let's go for it.
It is the Browns kicker, Chase McLaughlin. The guy, he hit 2 field goals over 50 yards last week. They're playing in Minnesota, so you got good weather conditions because it's indoors. And the guy is he's kicking well. I think he's a decent ad. I'm not super excited about it, and the fact that I recommended him means he will miss 3 to 4 field goals. So avoid him at all costs. So very confusing recommendation from me. But I'm going to say it anyway. Casey, who do you have as your kicker pickup?
Okay. I don't really have one, but I'm going to name Brandon Mcmanus in Denver. I don't look at kickers that way where somebody's a must add. McManus has had a good year.
Say must add. No, there's no kicker that's a must add.
But I also like Mason Crosby after and I apologize earlier for mentioning Green Bay when you were talking about Matt Prater. I was thinking of Mason Crosby. Hit a 51-yarder or 52-yarder as time expired in that 37-second comeback that Aaron Rodgers had. He's proven he's kind of nails when it's tough. But I'm going to go with Brandon McManus in Denver. He's got 38 points already this year. He's got, 7 PATs. He hasn't missed any. He's made already 9 or 10 field goals. So he's pretty reliable. The Denver offense isn't as bad as it sounds. So he would be my ad there.
Do you guys agree with this idea, though? Sometimes I want a kicker where it's like the offense can move the ball, but they're not that great at scoring. So a guy like McManus is a great pickup for that reason. A lot of field goals coming out. How about Ross? Who do you have? I
had Crosby, too. They're playing Pittsburgh, but I also had Sanders from Miami. They're playing at home against Indianapolis. I feel Indianapolis is one of those defenses that can pick it up in the red zone and force them to kick field goals. So if I had to pick a kicker that's under 60%, I like Frank Sanders for the Miami Dolphins this week. He's a monster. He's a great kicker. He led the league in scoring last year. I feel he'll have a great game this week against the Colts. don't feel Miami has the quarterback that can get it in the touchdown all the time. It's a very.
I'm not sure they can get it across midfield. That's what I'm worried about. So I'd rather go with a guy like Jason Myers of Seattle, who at least they're going to score points. Worst case scenario, you get 4 points from 4 extra points.
And another thing I think of when I'm looking at kickers, and you mentioned Chase McLaughlin from Cleveland, I'm going to go on the other side of that and say Greg Joseph from Minnesota, because they're in a dome. You're not worried about wind or weather conditions affecting the kicking game at all. That's if you have 2 kickers who are evenly kind of projected, I'm going with the one that you're guaranteed safer kicking conditions for them so they can make longer field goals.
Great calls, guys. We have a little bit of time left. And so what we're going to do now is turn to a couple players we think that you might want to trade for. Now, we talked about George Kittle. He's still underperforming. Go ahead, Casey. Who do you have?
Jonathan Taylor. He hasn't found the end zone yet in Indianapolis. The Colts have been pretty abysmal on offense. And so I'm assuming those owners probably drafted him with a top 8-9 pick and are really frustrated. But Jonathan Taylor still is in the top 5 in red zone touches. And we know he's going to find the end zone eventually, and it could happen in bunches. And so he would be my top trade target this week.
I love it. Also, he's a running back who catches passes. So, and if you're in a PPR league, he becomes even more.
And Nyheim Hines is really sexy. So a lot of people are high on him, which brings Taylor's value down even more. But I think by the end of the season, you're going to see the Jonathan Taylor that made him a top 10 pick.
Ross, what about you? Who would be the guy that you'd go out and trade for?
I mean, I think Kittle is a good idea. I think he'll pick it up. He's not going to have a horrible season. He'll have some good yards. I still think Calvin Ridley, I mean, he's not doing anything fantasy-wise. And this guy supposed to be a top 5 receiver beginning of the year. He was a second round or late first round pick. Yep. I think he'll pick it up. I feel that he'll do better. Antonio Gibson of Washington, I feel is going to pick it up also. He's been a huge disappointment this year fantasy-wise. Washington they have to pick it up and they have to start scoring touchdowns. I think Gibson will be the guy. I think you can get him really cheap right now. There's a lot of running backs out there that are not performing like they should be. I mean, Gibson, Kamara is another guy who I feel is not performing. He was a second pick in the draft in a lot of leagues.
Yep.
I mean, this guy's not doing anything.
Another guy who's of that same mold is Tyreek Hill. I mean, people spent their first round picks.
Horrible.
He hasn't been good, but you have to trust the talent. You have to trust Mahomes. So he's one I'd be willing to overpay for right now with a frustrated owner, because I think come the stretch run, he'll be the one who helps you get through the playoffs.
Yeah, but I feel that some of these owners just want to give up and get guys who are like, if I had Coop right now, I would trade him immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
Because his value is so high. And you can get so much for him. I bet if you had Coop, I bet you can get a Tyreek Hill. I bet you can get a top tier wide receiver for him, right? Devontae Adams. I bet people would trade Coop straight up for.
You talking about Cooper Kupp?
Cooper Kupp, yeah, I always mix it up.
Cooper the question is though, why would people do it? It's like if you're trading wide receiver for wide receiver,
they love to get the guy that's the it player right now. That's how a lot of fantasy people look at. Oh, this guy Cooper Kupp, he's going to keep it up. He's going to do the same thing every week. He's not going to do the same thing every week. Reality sets in very soon, and he's not one of these players. I don't
know. He's been pretty good with Jared Goff for years. You give him a really good quarterback. Look what he does.
That's why you trade him now, and you can get some really high value.
I would trade Calvin Ridley for Cooper. I have him on one of my teams. I'll trade him for Cooper Kupp right now.
Well, put the offer and I'll do it.
But here's the thing. I mean, and this is an important point. Like, if you've got a guy like Cooper Kupp, he has 5 touchdowns already and over 300 yards or something like that. You sell him. There's no way he's keeping up that pace.
There's no way.
I completely agree with you, Ross. Casey, who's another guy that you would sell?
That I would sell? That's playing out of his mind right now?
So somebody that has some value. You can't sell some guy that's not playing well. You got to sell somebody that has some value and has some sexiness to him. Go, Case, go!
Oh, my goodness. Jalen Hurts.
Okay, I could see it.
That's. He struggled. I don't know how he's doing tonight. We're live now, and I'm not watching the game, so I don't know if anybody wants to give an update.
He has like 56 yards, no touchdowns, and interception. But
I think his first game against Atlanta was against Atlanta. The only team that ever makes Atlanta look good are the New York Giants on defense, and so what he did was not terribly earth-shattering. He goes against San Francisco and lays an egg, but for some reason, people still believe in him. So he's somebody I would try to sell while there's value there, because I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in him.
I'll tell you somebody that I do have faith in that I wish I drafted is Kyrie Murray. I mean, I feel this guy's the real deal. Kyler, I feel this guy's the real deal. And I just think he's going to get better and better since the season goes. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. I mean, if I could pick he's my number one quarterback right now, easily.
Okay, I got to ask you, Casey, because you had Stafford number 5. Is he a guy that you would sell at this point? He is the number one.
No, I think he's legit. I wouldn't sell him unless I'd be getting a like first or second round value player for him at this point. I think if you're in the one league we're in values passing yards a lot more than it values rushing yards. And so you noticed that after week 1 with Baker Mayfield's week versus Lamar Jackson's week. And so Matt Stafford, when you have Woods and Higbee and Cooper Kupp, and you throw out whether it's Sonny Michel or Darrell Henderson, I think he's going to get you 260 to 300 plus yards every week with 2 to 3 touchdowns and throw in the occasional pick. I think that guy's like, if he wasn't on Detroit for the first 10 years of his career, I think we're talking about a Hall of Fame type of talent.
All right, guys, great job on the show. We hope we've helped you with your week 4. The upcoming week is week 4 pickups. This is the 3rd week of Waiver Wire. I know it's confusing. Hang with us. Well, it'll always be that same way. We're going to be here again Mondays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. We're here every week for you to tell you who to pick up. And then if you want to put it in the comments, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing. But put it in the comments, and you can tell us, where did we mess up? And where did we save your ass? We're going to do it every week. Great talking to you guys. We'll see you next week.
We're gonna set the internet on